Hello and welcome back to the seamanship videos here with Spartan Ocean Racing. We're out on board of Osprey at the moment, the Maxi Grand Mistral 80. We're going to be looking at some basic elements today of getting the headsails and the mainsail up. If you're joining the boat, if you're going to be going around the world, if you're doing a voyage, if you're doing a race, these are the basic skills we need. We've looked at the safety stuff, we've looked at the winches. Let's put it to work. Let's get some sails up. We'll get into it now. So what we've got on the side deck here is a staysail. It's a smaller sail for this boat, but it's more perhaps along the lines of what you'd be dealing with a rolled on Code Zero, something like that on a 40-foot boat. So we've got a couple of different components we have to look at here. The first one is the furler. This is a slightly older furler. This one came with the boat. We'll be replacing these later on to make sure that they're as strong and as durable and as reliable as possible, but this gives us a view of a pretty average furler. This one's a carver, I believe, and on the bottom of it we've got this static part which is attached to the main cage here. The main cage is connected to the boat. This is going to be on the bottom. The rope goes through and goes around the outside the diameter of this wheel. The wheel is connected to the tack of the sail. Sail tack is here. This attached to the deck, this black part doesn't move, and this bit is the bit that the rope activates. So what's important about this kind of furler is that the job that this thing does is it only opens and closes the sail. You can't have half a sail out. You can't put a lot of load on it when the sail is being rolled up. So if you're dropping sails that have got continuous line furlers, unless you really know what you're doing, I always turn downwind, really depressurize the system, and you can roll it away smartly, and you avoid the major bane that you can have with these, which is that the line can start to slip a little bit, and although you're trying to furl it up, there's so much pressure in the sail will not wind up, or that you get halfway and a big gust catches it because you're still reaching, and then it opens the sail again. So if you want to be efficient, turn downwind. That uses this to its best advantage. It's all made of magnesium alloy, and actually just before we started this, we were having to clean up the top. This is an older one. We can see the pin's been grabbed by vice grips and it's been messed with. This would be a hardened steel pin so that it does not wear, it does not change shape when it's got the tack of the sail pulling against it. But this hardened steel up against this magnesium alloy, the two react against each other in a galvanic action, creating loads of oxide, which then gets packed between the pin and these two parts of the yoke. So always make sure the pins are out when you store them. It stops this kind of galvanic action. Try and wash them down with fresh water. They are obviously on deck for very long periods, but they can just be a little bit of fresh water put over once in a while. When you take them apart, you can dust them down with a little file, which I probably still have mine in my pocket here from exactly what we were doing earlier. It's a little file like this. It's got a curved side and a flat side. The guys on the foredeck will have their own little rigging bag, and they can just come in here, take it apart, make sure there's nothing inside of here, no oxidization, nothing on here, and then a little bit of dry lube, and make sure that this doesn't rust any. So we'll put it all back together. We're going to connect it onto the sail, and we're going to see how the tack connects into this. Other parts of the sail here in front of us, we need to look at the other end of this situation, and that's this part. This is the top swivel. This bit again has a bit which is static. This is going to go, this is hardened steel. It's going to be attached to the halyard. The halyard hoists it up, and then this part can rotate separate to this part. Inside the front of the sail is this anti-torsional stay. So this is a stay that runs up the front of the sail, which is designed to not unlay itself. When you twist it, it's very good at passing torque up the sail and allowing you to furl the sail up. If you just had a piece of Dyneema in here or a piece of Vectran, it would start to twist the bottom, but it would be unable to transmit that torque up the sail and start to turn the top of the sail at the same time. So anti-torsional stay, top swivel, and then the furling gear at the bottom gives you that ability to roll the sail away. That's what we're going to be looking at today. So the sail as it is now, it's come out of the bag. We'd call this like a sailmaker's flake. You can see that the leech of the sail is in a nice zigzag going down through here, but then also the luff of the sail has got a bit of a zigzag, and the head of the sail is somewhat near the center. So this has been flaked in such a way that as a sailmaker would do, with both sides, both elements having as much ease in them as possible. This is quite a nice gentle turn for it to be going down. The alternatives would be if you had a jib that had battens in it, the battens would be in the back of the jib here, you can imagine, and they'd be about, on this size sail, about a meter long. If we were to flake it like this, there'd be a batten overlapping with a batten, overlapping with a batten, and this would be a very difficult thing to work with down below decks. This is a roller furling sail, doesn't have any battens, we don't need to worry about that, but if you had a normal jib, you would want to have the leech so that it's zigzagged on top of itself, and all those battens are stacked up at one end, and then it's easy to work with the rest of the sail. At the front, if we were going to be working with this sail on deck and it was a sail that we were hoisting up, some kind of jib, some kind of hanked-on jib, we'd have the luff of the sail all stacked up on top of itself so that the little hanks are very close to the front and we can attach them to the forestay easily. So when the front of it is stacked on at the front, that's a foredeck flake. That's what your bowman's getting ready so that it's easy to get on. When you've got the leech flaked, that's for going into storage down below decks. And when the front and the back are zigzagged evenly, that's a sailmaker's flake. So this has come straight out the bag as it would do from a new sailmaker. This is what you get if you're commissioning a boat. We're going to get it up in the air and we're going to get it rolled onto its anti-torsional stay. So first part of that, we're going to get the furling gear. We're going to make sense of this line that's here, lay it out on the side deck, connect this, plug it into the boat, and then we'll plug the sail into the furler. Okay, so we're laying out the furling line. This sail, I haven't used this sail very much, so I'm going to be looking at exactly the lead from the front down the side deck of the boat. If we were using this in a racing situation, if we were going out and really working the boat, we would roll up the sail using a winch. And you can do that on your boat. You can have it so it comes back to the cockpit and you grind it on in the cockpit. We'll look at that afterwards. But for now, we can just operate it by our hands. There's less than 5 knots blowing here. It'll give us a lot of control and we do a really nice initial fold with the sail. So furling line just laid on the side deck. We'll get the furler plugged in. So we get the bottom now and we plug it into the boat. What we've got here at the moment is just a very simple R-clip and this pin. So it's very easy to get this. We put the pin in and then on this boat, we're putting this R-clip on. I think for me personally, we'll probably change this out. Having an R-clip like this is, in reality, it's gonna hold it, but this is not what we want. We wanna see something in here that's a little bit more secure than that. Something that has this kind of characteristic. It's got a clip, it's got a string, and it's very securely in place. What we've got is an R-clip. So that's definitely not perfect, but it'll do for today for getting the sail rolled up, and that's all we're really doing. All right, get the pin in. Okay, good enough for now. Then we get the sail. This is the tack of the sail, and we get this and we're going to plug it into here. We take the clip off, move the pin back. This guy tucks into here, all the way through. Then we put the clip back on the other side. So the bottom of the sail is ready for furling. Okay, so we've got our halyard here. This is not necessarily the finest example of a halyard. This is how the boat came, but it's got some things here which are interesting to look at. We've got a big stainless steel shackle here, and the pin diameter is very close to the top of the sail. That's very important. We don't want to have too small a pin going into this element at the top of the sail here. So this is not a bad lineup, liking that. It's not spliced together. It's just got this barrel knot or halyard knot on the top of it, but it's secure. It's going to do what it needs to do, and it has a string holding the pin. So it has all of the elements, but clearly we'll show you a picture now of what should be here. There's going to be a nice spliced loop, and then it's going to have the reciprocal part made by Carver that comes down and connects very closely onto this, and that stops the pins from getting deformed. But if you're doing it on your boat, if you've just got yourself a new sail, a new code 0, many people want to upgrade to that, and you've got halyards, something like this is fine. Obviously a massive shackle for us because it's a bigger sail, but this will get you by until you can get that extra piece. Remember, every part of this is very expensive. To get a new furler for the bottom and top swivel and the unit that goes onto your halyard, you're probably looking at 5,000 US, certainly for us, and that's not including the torsional stay. So all very expensive, shouldn't be beaten up and pulled apart like this one has been. This is going to become one of our standby ones, but it gives you an idea of the kind of things you have to deal with on the bow of the boat. Anybody that's done bow on a boat will know that how it looks in the catalog and how it looks in real life are two completely different things. This is normally what you end up with, but as long as it's clean, it all fits together, it's strong enough, and importantly that the pin going through is the same diameter as what it's going into, which it is, we're good to go. We can put this in. It's not a requirement to make this as tight as it really should be. We're just putting the sail up and getting it furled on. As long as it's tight enough, once it starts to pull on that, it'll lock everything up. So we're good to go here. So we're at the mast now and we're going to get ready to hoist the staysail. At the moment, I'm just going to do this on my own because there's not very many of us here, and I think it emulates what happens when I have to do this solo. If you can do it solo, you can definitely do it with a crew, but we can see the details of how it goes up and how to hoist, and we can see what extra precautions you need to take if you're short-handed. The most obvious one is that the top of the sail with the furler and that shackle and everything, that weighs like 5 or 6 pounds, like 3 or 4 kilos. So as it's going up, the halyard is going to want to draw the head of the sail closer and closer to the mast, and we got to make sure this thing doesn't smack against the rig as it's going up. If we were solo, what we'd have like a kind of cushioned PVC foam wrap that goes around this guy. Again, we'll show you a picture here what that looks like, and that means that if it goes up and smacks against the mast, it's not going to damage anything. It's a carbon fiber mast. It's very, very strong, as we know, but it's not very good at resisting impact, so we want to keep this away from the rig. So I'll go up nice and slowly now. I'm going to be at the mast and I'm going to be doing a couple of things here. If you've ever worked as the mastman on a boat, you'll know this station very, very well. If you're taller and bigger than me, this is your place. This is where you should be. This is the halyard that's going to be pulling this sail up. We want to get the sail up because we're just getting the sail up and we're kind of rolling it up. We don't have to be too fast about it, but if you're the mastman or mast person, normally perhaps is more appropriate, then you're going to be moving this quite quickly. So the first thing we'll be doing is jumping the rope. So you jump up, grab hold of the rope as high as you can, then use your body weight to throw it down. So I'll give you a small demonstration of what that looks like. So I'm just going up here and then pulling here. Magically gets taken in the back of the boat, and again jump up and pull this down. Now as it starts to get heavier, it will be harder to do this. Well, look at that when she's a bit higher. Okay, so I paused here. We're attached to the mooring right now. We're not sailing along, and we're just doing this so we can see how everything works. This is a great opportunity to see how the sail's going up. Firstly, lovely new condition. But you can see what's happening, that the halyard's pulling the head of the sail closer and closer to the mast. Now, when we're putting these up normally, the reason that they're rolled up is that it makes them so much easier to use. You just go below, grab this big rolled up sail, put it on the deck, and then you're hoisting up the rolled up unit. You unroll it, you close it, you put it down. The difference here, we're just getting it to that position, we're getting it rolled up, but we can see now the anti-torsional stay going up the front of the sail. We can see the furler at the top. We can see the leech of the sail. It's all coming out of this flake that was this sailmaker's flake that's on the side deck, and it's nicely, slowly making its way up the rig. There's almost no wind here. If we had more wind, then we'd be a lot more cautious about how we do this, but this kind of job, getting the sail rolled up, we do this when there's no wind. So this is fine, we just go slowly. Okay, so we started out by jumping up and using our body weight. That gets difficult after a while, so we might start to just climb the rope, just pulling the rope. Now we've got to the bit where it's getting heavy. You can tell I'm trying to make it look like it's not too heavy, but if we pull outwards on the rope here, the top of it is variable. The top of it's attached to the sail, and the top of it does have a little bit of motion. The other end of it goes through the turning block and along the deck there back to Elliot, and Elliot's got to turn on the winch. So the rope can't move. This part of the rope, it can't move. The other end of the rope, it can move, and we can apply a vector load. We sweat the line or swig the line, we pull out. Now, body position, my hips are towards the front of the boat. That's to promote the fact that I want to look at the sail. If you're the mast person, if you're doing this job, you've got to look at the sail, you've got to look at it going up, otherwise the bowman's going to be screaming at you. So we pull out, and then I drive down towards the bottom, at which point Elliot takes the slack off me. I'm only reaching in at shoulder height here, and I'm putting my full body weight into it. Pull out and then drive down to the mast. Pull out, drive down. There we go. If you want to add 3 turns to that winch, that's it. All right, so our sail's up. It's probably good for it just to flatten out, straighten out. It's a good looking sail, but for those who are in the know, you'll see it's got a lot of depth to it. It's got a lot of shape to it. The other thing which we can see is that this sail overlaps the mast. Now on the side deck, the cars, the jib sheets come up, the staysail sheets come up, and in fact the code 5 sheets come up and into these huge cars on this boat. We're going to need to put these as far back as possible so that we can pull this sail tight. All right, stand on the line, that makes it easier. Okay, so now when we attach the sheet to this, and again we're doing this on a nice easy day, these are Tylaska snap shackles, very easy to operate. If you haven't seen these before, you put your finger into here, pull down on this, that opens the catch on the side, and then that bit flicks open. They're literally made by the Tylaska family, who have the Tylaska company that make these Tylaska shackles. Bigger ones like this are in the $500 US range, going up from there. Key always when you're working with these is to be, just as you pick them up, is always look at the top here and make sure there's no fractures at the top. This is the thinnest part of it. This is where it's most likely to fail. In there, you see we've got a little bit of rust that all needs cleaning up, but she's good to go. The bottom part of it works nicely and it locks into place. The bail, this is called the bail rotates and the splice is clean and the sheet's in good condition. So we can just eyeball that in a second. Take it, pop it onto the clew of the sail. We can get the other one off if we need it, and we've got ourselves a sail. And so for those who see the detail in this, you see we can't sheet this on hard. This staysail is not designed for going upwind. It's designed for cutting across the wind. So we've got to talk to Quantum. This sail was designed for this boat. The boat's name is on the bag. It was specifically designed. We've got to find out exactly what wind angle and wind range it was designed for. But that's in the future. What we're going to do today is we're going to get it rolled up onto its roller furler. So let's get into that. A couple of details while we're looking at the sail. Every sail is going to have things slightly different, but this one intended for a bigger boat and for heavier weather. Firstly, very strong material through here, as you might imagine. We got a lot of extra stitching, double stitching, triple stitching going through this quadrant of the sail. All the webbing here to distribute the load. That's pretty standard to most sails. Up here we've got the leech line, and that's going to have a bit more purchase in it perhaps than you would normally expect. Let's have a see what they've got here. My first time seeing it as well. So we've got the actual adjuster is down here. As we pull on this line, we've got this little bit of mechanical advantage, and it's pulling on this line in the leech of the sail. That's there to stop the back edge of the sail from fluttering too much. You want to have it so it's flat, but if it didn't have a tensioner, the back of the sail will be forever trembling as you're sailing along, and that starts to wear out the back of the sail. So the leech line is there. How much adjustment? To be honest, for this kind of sail, it's not going to be too far out from the boat, so you can get this so it's just perfect. If the back edge of the sail is too hooked, it is slowing down the movement of the breeze across the sail. So you want to get it so it just stops trembling and then leave it. So you can see here they've got this piece of elastic that takes up the slack. The cam cleat holds the setting, and then we just take all of this, tuck it back inside the Velcro. That's good. We've got another one here that goes along the foot, very similar setup. Stop the bottom of the sail from trembling, exactly the same situation. We don't need to have too much tension in either of these, so you can just tuck those away, leave them inside their little pockets. And at the front of the sail we've got another adjustment which is very important. Because this sail is on an anti-torsional stay, the stay at the moment is a little bit loose. We're just hoisted it up by hand. We've just completed that part of the process. So now we can see this lashing at the bottom. This lashing is how tight the sail is on the stay, and it will affect how hollow the front of the jib is, how much depth you've got at the front of the jib, and where the position of maximum draft is. If you've got a sail, you should have a nice curved aerofoil shape going across from the front to back. From the cord length of the sail should have a gennaker shape, a nice aeroplane shape. If it's too deep at the front, we can tension this on and push it the point of maximum chord depth aft. If it's too shallow at the front, then we can ease this off and we can get a little bit more draft in the front of the sail. So this is a more advanced sail trim, but this is where it happens. When you're putting these sails on, you need to have this bit adjustable and the top part lashed in place. Don't make the bottom a lashing that stays permanently and the top the adjustable bit, because you can never adjust it ever again. So like this now, this is not too bad. We'll put some final tension in this. It's my first time seeing this sail, and make sure that we've got a reasonable amount of tension on the front of it. But so far so good. So the front of the sail's gone tight now, and we can make a guess that this is either some kind of code 0 staysail, if such a thing exists, or some kind of reaching sail. The front edge of the sail has got to be pretty tight. So the halyard's been drawn up tight, the anti-torsional stay is tight. If you attempt to furl these or unfurl them with the stay loose, it doesn't work out very well. It's very difficult for it to roll when it's on this kind of weird angle with a curve in it if it's loose. So these need to be pretty tight. You can see that the sail going up the front of it is nicely tight. It's not overly tight. If it was too tight, we'd have a big like fold in the front of the sail, indicating over tension. Because it's a reaching sail, I'm not going to go for too much tension in the front of it. It's a little bit different from an upwind jib or an upwind staysail. But for now, I think we've got ourselves a sail. It's dry, it's flat, it's in good condition, all the parts work. So we can roll this up and put it into storage, and then we know next time it comes out, it's ready to go. So we're going to start rolling up the sail now. The furler is set to exit its lines at the 4 o'clock position. That's just idiosyncratic to this boat. The boat's not really been set up for it. This is obviously new. They've not used it very much. I can tell that from the condition of the sail, how new it is. So the boat's not yet specifically designed to have this on board, but the lines go off down the starboard side. They go to the back of the boat, they go through a turning block, and they go towards the cockpit. Because we're just rolling this up for the first time and we're seeing how it settles onto the roller, we can just do it with our hands and we can watch it. I've got Elliot down the back and he's gonna pull on the sheet if we need to do that. So we can see the action now of the ropes. When I pull on the right-hand rope here, it starts to roll the sail up. Equally though, if I pull on the left-hand one, it's gonna roll the sail up. So we have to then work out which is the right way to roll the sail up. And that really is connected to the Velcro, which we can see at the back here. Right down the back of the boat, by the clew, we've got those strips of Velcro, and it looks to me like the sail wants to be rolled clockwise. You think about that coming in. Is that going to be right? We need to have it, no, I think it's going to go the other way actually. Anti-clockwise, yeah. So the big longer strips of Velcro going horizontally are on the starboard side of the sail, and the vertical strips are on the port side. So as we roll up the sail anti-clockwise, the horizontal strips will come in first and will be present on the roll, and then last minute the vertical strips will come on top of them on the port side of the sail, and it will seal the clew onto the sail. It's not to be trusted in high wind. I still always wrap my sheets around it, and I will come up here and physically put a sail tie through this mechanism to stop it from moving. But the Velcro gives you a little bit of safety that you otherwise wouldn't have. So we're going to turn this anti-clockwise and see if I've got it right. Okay, good. All right, let's stop there. Let's have a look at a detail. If I just pin this for now. So if we look, the bottom of the sail is looking okay. It's quite loose. It's great for going into storage because it's not tightly done. Sometimes when these are put together in 25 knots, they're so tight that you think, geez, should I really store that down below? But if we look up the sail, we're looking to see, has the torque been transferred to the top of the sail? I say a prudent sailor looks aloft. So you're furling these things, it's easy to be in the cockpit, grindy, 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 grindy. You're watching the bottom going round and you can hear chuk, 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 chuk. It's not clear what's happening. What's happening is the top of the sail's still got breeze and the torque is not being transmitted up the front of the sail. That's normally to do with the fact the halyard's not tight enough, or if your swivels are getting a little bit cranky, a little bit gritty, that there's too much tension and the top furler is not able to move. So good maintenance on the furler is very important, and then observation of the tension of the front of the sail so you get optimal furling. If it won't move, stop, see what's happening. The other thing to bear in mind is that when you've got a furler up there, if there are halyards nearby and the halyards are a little bit loose, the furler can pick up a halyard and it'll get like 2 twists into it before you realize, man, this thing will not move. Never apply too much force to the things when you've got a big grinder system like this. If you're putting more force in than you're expecting, you could be putting thousands of kilos of force in, and it's very easy to break this mechanism. It should just roll up, and I think that's neatly demonstrated by the fact that I can do it by hand right now. Okay, so let's see if we can trip a mistake here. So as I am working with this line, I'm keeping under tension here. But if I start to ease the tension, if we look at the actual furling unit here, if I ease it off, see that? See how it's moving? That's because I'm releasing the tension on this. Once you've started a furling operation, particularly in heavy breeze, it will unfurl itself very easily. At the moment, there's almost no pressure in the sail at all. There's nothing happening here, and I'm able to get it to slip just by easing this off a little bit. There is a method of opening sails. If you have like an open 60 and you're going to be doing a lot of work with it, you can have a slightly different mechanism on here that doesn't have such a high guard in this area, and you can take the rope and flip it out the way, and then when you want to open the sail, you just start pulling and the sail will run out. When I work with Alex Thompson with Hugo Boss, that's what they do. Just walk forward, flick the rope out of the furler, go to the back, start pulling, and boom, it's open instantly. The issue can be that if the rope is not completely out, it'll pick up the rope and make a mess of it. If you start getting into a habit of just letting it slide, you start to wear down the sheath on the rope. So when you're opening the sail, invariably it will slip somewhat, but you should prep the incoming line so it's flaked and it can make a good go at getting through there, and you don't have as much slippage, and you should try and pull the line to unfurl the sail so that you've got tension on the one side and slack on the other so that the process is working. Just allowing it to slip can damage the rope, but if I keep some pressure on here for now, line up with the gate, comes in nice and easily. And that's that bit there, that's actually the splice going through. So I guess we can make a little comment about that. When you're creating these lines, the actual amount of force that's required to furl these things up is not very much. If it's 100 kilos, I'd be very surprised. But this line, an 8mm Dyneema line like this, can do thousands of kilos. So when it comes time to work with these kind of lines and make up a furling line, a continuous furling line, what's the splice that you use? It's actually pretty simple. You just pull the sheath back from the core, snip out the core, and stitch the core and the sheath together. There's a line of stitching running down the side of this guy, which is where the core and the sheath are connected together so they can't slip relative to each other. And then you take the core and cut it out of the other side. Then you just take one sheath and run it inside the other sheath and just machine stitch it together. It's very simple. So there is no core. This is core and sheath, it gets to here, and then this is just another piece of sheath from the other side. No core in this area. It's just 2 pieces of sheath. A more advanced version of this, which you can do when you've got bigger furling units like this, is you put an eye splice in the end of the line, but it's a Flemish eye splice. You're just taking the sheath and doubling it back down inside the line. There's no core in there at all, but you've now got a little loop, and you do the same on the other side, and then you can put them together with a piece of thin Dyneema, like 2mm Dyneema, and that's easily strong enough, so you'd have like a little joint here. This one's been stitched together. It's okay, it'll do exactly what it needs to do, but when it comes time to service this line, we have to just cut it free. So it is better to put the little Flemish splice in. If you can't do that, if you're working with double braid line where the exterior is the same diameter as the interior, just cut the interior around on both sides and put one sheath inside the other sheath and stitch it all together. All right, we're getting towards the end of the furl. If there's one thing that the person on the bow, the mastman or the forebow can do, is just get a little bit of downwards pressure on the sheet when you're rolling these on. if there's winds blowing, if it's really kind of like flapping around and going crazy, it can end up that this last part, the upper part of the last quarter, can end up really loosely flaked, or loosely rolled on, should I say. And that can mean that when you put the sail back up for redeployment at a later date, it'll start to shake itself open before it's been hoisted properly. So a little bit of tension here will help with that. I've not got too many hands here, so I'm just going to pull. Well, I can do that, I guess. Create a little bit of friction for it, and we're into the last bit. Okay, so as we go into the last part of the furl here, we can see I managed to guess it right. We've got these horizontal bits of Velcro, that's the hook side, is coming in on the starboard side of the sail. The starboard side of the sail is wrapping around, and now we're just going to get to the last couple of feet of the sail, and these vertical bits of Velcro, the hook side, is going to come in and join it, and that should seal the sail up. Not too bad. All right. Now what I do at this point, a lot of people will stop here. What I do is I put 3 wraps of my sheets around the sail. The 1, 2, 3, I think that's nearly 3. There we go. Okay, now why do I do that? So even right now, as I'm holding onto this line, I can feel there's a little bit of a pressure, there's a little bit of a desire for it to unwrap. Essentially, we've taken something that wants to be flat, and on this boat is quite heavy, and we've rolled it up. So we've kind of made it a bit springy. It kind of wants to spring out. Plus we've applied a lot of torque from the bottom, and although it has engaged at the top, it would be silly to think that there's now no torque being sent back down that anti-torsional state to the bottom. If we were to just allow everything to relax, it would probably unwind itself. The Velcro is going to really help, but as I'm at the back of the boat and I look forward at my head sails, I have it in my head that there are 3 wraps of the sheets around the head sails. So if I look forward and there's 2, or there's 1, or there's no wraps, I know the sail is starting to come undone. I can immediately act. If you don't have the sheets wrapped around, if you've just got the sail there, it's easy for it to start to unroll a little bit, because when you look forward, you look at the sail, and then the little blade of sail, you can easily miss that because you're looking at it end on. So it could have unrolled by 1 foot or 2 foot or 3 foot on this kind of sail before you even realize the sail's unrolling. For me, with these 3 wraps on, it's going to have to turn 3 times and then probably turn 2 or 3 times more before it starts to really catch the wind. It gives me time to sort something out. And I guess that comes from being hyper conservative, from being a solo sailor, because getting a sail like this rolled up is very easy on a day like today. We're just pulling on the thingy and it rolls up and it's all super easy, but the same principle is used for the Code 5s, for the A6s, for big sails in heavy weather. And if you're on your own, it could be 250 turns on a winch to get this rolled up. To then make the mistake of it unrolling is really hard on the soul. So wrap around 3 times, tickety-boo, nice and easy. When it comes down to the deck, it'll be completely contained the whole way to the deck by the wraps of the sheets. The only complex bit that this makes is that we need to learn how to wrap the sheets around the sail ready for launching it. So we're going to bring this one down to the deck now. We've got it ready, and then we'll put it back up and look at how to connect it and how to get it up ready for operations. Let's do that.